Please welcome on stage, Stella.
Hello everyone. Let's see, how does the clicker work?
To the right.
All right, it works. Yay, at least the beginning. So raise your hands if you had a plan and you thought it was the best perfect plan, and then at one point you realized it was actually not what you wanted. So yeah, I think a lot of us can relate. So that also happened to me. I thought I had the perfect plan. I studied law and pictured myself as a successful lawyer, having 3 children, making headlines in the Dutch newspapers, my parents proudly clipping out my pictures. But no, I found myself in Uganda in a flower dress just like this, sending kids to school, building water boreholes. Something completely different. So you might wonder, what happened? In order to tell you how I went from chasing court cases to building water boreholes in Uganda and helping communities over there, I want to introduce to you the 6 human needs. I became aware of them when I followed a seminar by Tony Robbins a couple of years ago, and it really changed my life and gave me a lot of insight about myself. So basically, according to Tony Robbins, there are 6 needs. The first 4, they are the essential ones. Without those fulfilled, you cannot work on your other 2 human needs. So the first 4 is certainty, to feel safe and in control, variety, to feel excited and alive, significance, to feel important and seen, love and connection, to feel understood. And once those 4 are fulfilled, you have the 2 spiritual needs, which are growth, to evolve, and contribution, to make an impact. So now, think about what are your top human needs. And who knows, maybe for the nomads, there's even a 7th need, which is Wi-Fi. And, and there are also other authors who use other type of needs. So this is not limited, but I really like the philosophy behind it from Tony, because what I initially was chasing was success and certainty with my law career. But besides the needs, I also discovered that I had an inner mountain inside of me my whole life. An inner mountain is the block between you and the life you want to live. It's formed by coexisting but conflicting needs. For example, think about that you want certainty in your life, but at the same time, you also want to go, let's say, on a nomad cruise for 27 days, which is perhaps a little bit more adventurous. So a lot of times you have needs that are conflicting. And not just that, also the way we are trying to meet our needs can be done in good ways, but also in harmful ways. So the harmful ways, that's basically your own inner mountain that you need to face and overcome. Think at addictions you can have and other negative ways. So yeah, raise again your hand if you felt that you did everything right, but still there was something missing. That's exactly where my story starts. I felt everything was right, but something was missing. As a child, I was born in Germany, but then I moved to the Netherlands when I was 5 years old, and I moved again. So there was a lot of instability in my early childhood life, so I was craving certainty, control, stability. I needed to have everything planned out. My whole day, my whole life, every hour, I was super focused. I also had my real father and my stepfather, who were both very successful. And for me, it was important to also become equally successful like them. Because I thought, only if I'm that successful, then I will be enough. My stepfather, unfortunately, he died from cancer when I was 19 years old. But still, I had this urge inside of me to get his approval for everything that I was doing. I was chasing certainty and significance by craving control and I became over perfectionist. And I was basically just living for approval, not for alignment. My actions and values were not in harmony with who I really was. So there was my big mountain. My mountain was perfectionism, control and fear. And climbing it meant confronting myself. So there was the wake-up call. I was vegetarian for about 13 years, and I even got my hunting license because my stepfather used to be a hunter, and I was still looking for his approval. An approval he would obviously never ever able to give me, since he wasn't living anymore. But still, I was just in this narrow mindset, or how you call it, in this tunnel vision, where I was just going on with my master degrees, with my law studies, with a lot of things, till I completely exhausted myself. I slowly started to fade away, and I became more skinny and skinny during my university studies. My friends already noticed it and said, Stella, can you please keep your jacket on? Because you're really looking a bit scared when you take your jacket off. So in order to survive all of the pressure, I had a eating disorder, and I became more skinny. And my therapist told me, if you continue like this, you will not live any longer. And also the girls in my student house back then, they also told me, Stella, you look scary. You cannot continue living here if you do not change something about this. Then a good friend of mine told me, Stella, change your environment. Go travel and actually find out who you are. Because I was basically not living my life. I was living the life, the dreams of my stepfather, from whom I also inherited some things. So of course I was super, super grateful for it, but the pressure and everything just made me somehow forget who I actually was. So that's when variety entered my life. I started to travel. Travel strips away all the labels. No one cared about my resume, no one cared about who I was, it was just me. I traveled all around the world in about 8 months, even also Australia, Hawaii. I did literally all of it. And I was confronted a lot of time with poverty and injustice during my studies, during my travels. So that's why I then decided to do also a master in human rights and democracy, and not only in international law. But to keep this talk a little bit shorter, I can, forward a little bit. Because even though I did work briefly for some larger organizations, I did not end up there. Because during my studies, I went to Uganda, and I'm going to share now more about that. In 2009, I went for the first time to Uganda. Back then, I was doing research about child soldiers. I met this remarkable woman called Susan. I interviewed her with the help of a translator, because Susan, she was illiterate. She didn't know how to read and write, let alone English. She knew not one single word of English. She was actually crashing stones with her 3 children in a stone quarry. And Susan was only 2 years older than me. I was 23 back then, she was 25, and her oldest son was already 12, because she got him when she was 13 years old herself. And this is an image I will just never forget anymore. When I saw her with her kids sitting in this stone quarry, crashing stones with the super hot sunshine on top of them. So later that day, Susan took me to her home to show me her second profession that she had in order to put food on the table for her children to survive. Because with the stone quarry, she was just making $1 a day. Barely enough, actually, to survive. So Susan showed me how she created super beautiful jewelry made from recycled paper. And I still wear them today. That was my most precious gift I've ever gotten from someone. Back then, I had a feeling I couldn't really give her much, but she was already so happy and glad that someone listened to her story and wrote it down, that she gifted me a bracelet made out of recycled paper. These are some pictures from the older days, so you have a little bit of an idea how this stone quarry looks like where Susan lives. Susan was a post-war survivor, as already mentioned, so that's why she ended up in this internally displaced camp in Kampala with people from North Uganda, where their biggest job is crushing stones to survive. Because also in Kampala, people speak another language than what Susan and her friends and family spoke.
Most of the people here, they work in the stone quarry. But some of us who now are making the paper grids, at least we can sell the paper grids and we get the money and we get how to buy food. Right?
All right, so this is like the stone quarry in our holy quarters, so you can probably imagine that happening was something that over the next years always stayed with me. And it made me actually realize that I was spending my life chasing certainty and significance when what I truly needed was variety and contribution. At least that's what I thought at that time. Suddenly, life was not about how I was seen, but about how I could serve. So that were my next prioritization of human needs. So from the 6 needs, now I was all about variety and contribution. And that was also the birth of 22 Stars. Because when I went back home from Uganda, I Googled how many children are not going to school. And it was actually millions in Uganda only. I'm not talking about the whole world, just about Uganda. Millions of kids were not able to go to school. But then I thought by myself, what if I just start with one woman, one person? So I started to send money to Susan once a year through our translator, Ida. And a couple of years later, when I went again to Uganda, actually just for a random visit, Susan really surprised me. Because with the money I sent her, she went back to school, and she also sent her 3 kids to school. So when I came back, Susan ran to me, and she spoke English. And before that, it was just communication with a translator. Because Susan actually said to me that she always felt in her heart that one day I would come back, and when I came back, she wanted to be able to talk directly to me. Because she had even bigger plans than I could ever imagine when I met her the first time. Because her plan was that we together start a social jewelry business. And now this video is from 10 years ago, 2015. Yes, I made this video back then just myself on my phone because we had like zero budget, but we just started the business. Here you see some pictures how we make the jewelry. So it's all recycled paper and beer bottle labels. And then the Nomad quiz came, which also plays an important role. So actually I can take my jacket off now because I was not anymore chasing this career in international law. By then I knew that, especially after the first Nomad cruise, there was no more way back to a 9-to-5 job. Oh. So, thank you. Oh, I'll just put it here. Thanks. All right, so I became basically just a flip-flop nomad hippie girl on a flower dress. I went on the first Nomad cruise 10 years ago where I gave a speech about how we were using Instagram to market our products from Uganda to especially the American market. And then I participated in some masterminds, as you perhaps all of you have also done. And then the whole idea started on the Nomad cruise that besides our jewelry business and selling bracelets to send kids to school, we could actually start a charity, the Train to Start Foundation, which we still have obviously today. And even at one point, Susan was joined us on a Nomad cruise, and it was the first time ever that she left Uganda. So that was a huge milestone, not just for her, but actually for her whole community, because many people thought that she was wasting money by going to school herself and not letting another person take her place in school. Because Susan was HIV positive. And a lot of people thought that she would probably die sooner than later. But thank God she didn't. She still is on medication, but super strong and doing very well. And she set a good example for the people in her community that it doesn't matter how old you are, and also whether you're HIV positive or not, it's not the end of the world. And you can just see, you can always start. She started school when she was 26. About that age, and now she is our project leader. So since the project kind of like started on the Nomad cruise, we have a special message for you guys from our children in Uganda. So yeah, 20 starts. Today we are sending more than 550 kids to school. We are building water boreholes. Only this year we built 3 of them. We give the kids school uniforms, meals. We have an entrepreneurship program for the parents, for the communities, young leadership program, computer program, music program. The list actually goes on much longer than this. So this is just again like a video background to just give you a little bit more of the feeling of how it is in Uganda. We are also organizing at times trips for sponsors to come and visit us. A lot of Nomad cruises have been already in Uganda, so if you like to join, you're more than welcome to come and visit us. But this was not the end yet, because you would say or think, wow, Stella, you found your purpose. Congratulations. Well, I didn't really have the feeling myself that I found my purpose. And that's where the next mountain comes in. So contribution gave me energy. Variety made my life exciting. But that was not all I was craving for. Perhaps you remember again, like the 6 human needs that were there in the beginning. So I started to ask myself actually a really important question, namely what happens if I die? Because I had malaria a couple of times, I think almost once a year actually, and that for a couple of years in a row. So I was pretty often sick. I was also not really working out, not really going to the gym. I started to get terrible back pain at one point. Even I remember 2017 or 18, I visited my mom in Breda to not leave her anymore for the next 4 weeks, because I ended up in intensive care. And thank God she visited me there. and brought my laptop because I had to do work. And I remember my mom was sitting next to my hospital bed asking me for the password of my computer. And I was so sick that I could not even remember the password anymore. And then I realized, shit, what is actually going to happen to the Turning Stars Foundation if I'm not there anymore? Because I used to be myself in Uganda 4 to 6 months a year. So that was like one big thing that I started to struggle with. The other one was also thinking about myself. What were actually my values? How do I see my future? Because the top 2 needs that you have in your life, they are also directing all the decisions you're making. And depending on which needs you prioritize, that's also how your life basically will continue or end. So in my case, you can imagine what's going to happen if your top needs are variety and contribution. So I was constantly all over the place, nomading, and I was constantly giving. But I forgot completely to think about myself. And back then I was even engaged, and my back then fiance wanted to get married with me and wanted to have kids. And that was actually also what I wanted. Otherwise I would not have said yes. But how can I get pregnant if I'm constantly in Uganda, where every couple of months I'm getting sick from malaria? And if it wasn't malaria, I got bilharzia, I got food poisoning. I guess I had already every disease you can just imagine. So I started to realize that there were 2 needs that I kind of like abandoned, and that's growth and connection. So we hired a business consultant to train our team in Uganda so that now they can also do stuff without me constantly being present there. And so far it works very well. It's the first time ever that I've not been in Uganda myself for 12 months. So that's a big accomplishment, because the year before I tried it, but then still they called me for emergencies and I had to fly in and out again. But of course that was not the long-term plan. So we focused on growth, which also meant that we were connecting amongst each other much, much better. Most of our workshops were not that much about how to get work done, but it was much more about understanding each other, cultural understanding. Why do the women in Uganda do things a certain way? Why do I need for my sponsors in Europe certain things? So this whole process brought us so much more together as a team, and our mission became also much more impactful than ever before. And I also realized that I had to reorder my life. So for years I put my mission first, then my family and friends, and completely last I put myself. But now I had to reverse it. First I had to think about myself, then my friends and family, and then the mission. Because when we take care of ourselves first, we have more to give to others. As I already mentioned, no one would have benefited if I would have, again, got malaria and sick or something. But I had to learn it. It was really a big process for me to make those shifts. And it definitely did not happen overnight. But it happened. So now I actually got, let's say, all I wanted. I have my boyfriend now who already has 2 kids. So it's not obviously the one that I was engaged with, and it's not my own biological kids, because by now I'm already 40, and I don't even know if I could have my kids myself. But I always really had this feeling that I really wanted to have a family. But because I was constantly in Uganda and I had malaria, it didn't really, gave me the opportunity, to go after that, what I also wanted. And as I already mentioned, between my team, we became much more closer together. So I basically threw away variation and contribution for growth and love and connection. So that became then the focus of my needs. And I also realized that privilege can become purpose if you use it to serve. So this is at my birthday party, where also some Nomad Cruisers have been present. I grew up in a quite big house, and I also inherited a big house. And I always felt extremely bad and guilty about it. And that was also kind of like a mountain that I had, which created some self-sabotage inside of me that I have to speed up a bit. So I started to realize privilege can become purpose. So my first steps for you to find your purpose: awareness. So which human needs drive your life right now? Balance. We need all 6, but how are you meeting them? Do you meet them in a good way or in a bad way? Alignment. Purpose is something you align with through action. And contribution. If you feel lost, just serve. If you still have 10 seconds, then you can close your eyes for 10 seconds and you do a reflection exercise. So just think about it. Where are you climbing the wrong mountain? Which mountain is it? Where are you chasing certainty or significance? And what you truly crave is love, growth, or contribution. What is one small action you can take this week to move closer to your truth? Transformation begins with one shift in awareness. So you can open your eyes again, and if you are now aware of the needs that you are mostly after, and then perhaps the mountain you have that you still have to climb, that's already a very good big step to finding your purpose. Because your purpose is basically aligning all your human needs. And it's not one moment, it's a journey. You don't find it, but you become it. So after my last shifts, where my focus was on growth and love and connection, I try now much more to combine all of them. Because of course I'm also still doing contribution and variety. But love and connection, is definitely, I would say, the most important one if you want to create purpose in life. So the 6 needs recap. So again, if you wonder how I became from this young girl who was looking just for approval from her parents, from everyone in the world, to the woman that I am now, it's because I started to realize my human needs and how I was meeting them and how to meet them in a better way. So now I'm looking for certainty through stability, for variation through excitement. Significance is my drive. Love is for me belonging. Growth is meaning. And contribution means for me fulfillment. When you align all those 6, you don't just find purpose, but you become it. So put purpose into action. Purpose is not the end, it's the beginning. So when you stop chasing approval and start living with contribution, life becomes whole. And for this, we obviously have no more time, so you can just take a picture of it, take it as a homework. Those are 13 actions you can take to find purpose. And I like especially number 13, is just build your community. What we are all doing right now, because we are all in this amazing community of nomad cruisers. And without them, I would definitely never have found my purpose.
My name is Kunya Ivan. I am 20 years old. I joined Train to Stars Foundation Project in 2016. I am now in Senior 1 class. Thank you so much, Johannes.
My name is Kato Isaac.
My name is Shambisha Barbara.
My name is Monunzilakis Ochieng Emmanuel.
My name is Kadon Jans.
My name is Monunzilaki.
My name is Damkasa Gift. My name is Marie Rebecca.
My name is Akelo Chris. Lenia Winnie. Akelo Chris.
My name is Samuel Okabe Raphael.
I am Abelisa.
My name is Angom Pauline.
My name is Obin.
My name is Stella. I'm 3 years old.
Hello. My name is Kama Precious. I am in primary 2. I joined in 2024. Bye.
So yeah, these are the children, and this is the last slide also. So these are the children that are sponsored by the Nomad Cruises, who are actually on Nomad Cruise 15. So as a little surprise, we created this video for them. These are the actual videos, and most of those kids are sponsored since 7 years already by them. So thanks a lot.
A round of applause for Stella.
Thank you.